Hi, Wellspring. Welcome to Tuesday Talks with Pastor Jerry and Pastor Dawn.
Hey, Wellspring.
We're glad to be back with you. And I just want to let you know at the end of this video, we're going to give you some direction about where we're headed in the future for coming back together in corporate worship. So you'll want to stick around for that. But today we've been contemplating a story in the Bible that comes out of the book of Acts that is during a time of crisis for the church. And it gives us a great model, a picture for how to think about our situation. And it's when a famine came across Judea and the city of Jerusalem and was affecting everybody, including the people of the early church. And they were trying to feed the widows that were connected to their community of faith, but a complaint arose. The Greek widows said, hey, you're feeding the Hebrew or the Jewish widows before you're getting to us, and this doesn't seem fair. And maybe that was actually happening. There could have been some prejudice taking place, or maybe it was just a perception. But nevertheless, the complaint arose, and so the leaders had to respond. They got together, they talked about it, prayed about it, and they came up with a plan. They appointed 7 spirit-filled men to oversee the food distribution, and that brought about resolution. But it took some time. There was a process, and that's how we want to think about the things that we're discussing today. So we're talking about some Christian virtues.
Yeah. So the 4 Christian virtues that we're talking about today are humility, sacrifice, patience, and wisdom. And these words exist in the world, but today we're going to look at them from a biblical perspective. And sometimes we may affirm these Christian virtues, but they don't happen in a vacuum. They need to be applied to our real life.
Right.
So returning to church or some type of gathering is a rubber meets the road moment.
Yeah.
So we have to ask ourselves, how are we going to live out these Christian virtues through the reentry process?
Yeah, that's a great thought. So not just saying, hey, we believe these concepts, but actually living them. So the first one is humility. And Jesus, of course, is the great picture of humility. Philippians 2 tells us that he existed in the form of God, but he didn't regard that as something to be grasped, but instead he emptied himself and took on the form of a servant, became like us in human flesh. And so Jesus took a posture of humility from the very beginning. And he set that pattern, and his early followers also lived lives of humility.
Yeah. Isn't it funny in this time that everybody has become an expert in disease and in quarantining and in politics and how we're supposed to do everything? Everybody's become their own expert.
Yeah. We all have strongly held opinions, and we hold those opinions because we think they're right. We believe them. But the reality is, even the people that are experts in many of these fields are struggling to determine what is the best course of action. So I think it's important for us to remember that we need to hold even our strong opinions with a posture of humility, with an attitude of humility. The Bible says God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. So we certainly want to posture ourselves in humility. It's very easy to start moving into condemnation towards someone who's not as free as we are, or to start judging someone that we think, wow, they're not keeping the rules. And the real issue here is actually not who's right and who's wrong, because it's a little bit gray area as we look at this. But the real issue is, what's the condition of our heart? What attitude are we going to take? And as we come back together, there could be a real possibility for disunity in the body of Christ. But more importantly, there's an opportunity here for us to be countercultural, for us to demonstrate to the world that Christians can come together with a wide variety of opinions and love one another and walk together in unity. So let's take that posture of humility. Yeah. The second one is sacrifice. And the call to follow Jesus is a call to sacrifice. His whole life was one of sacrifice. The early Christians had much to sacrifice in making this decision to follow Jesus.
Yeah, and Paul teaches us to put the needs of others above our own needs. And the early Christians modeled that for us throughout the Bible.
Yeah, that's a great verse to remember. Consider the needs of others as more important than your own. This is true no matter where you land on some of these issues. Wearing masks or social distancing, or do I shake hands and hug? All those questions that we're asking. Well, guess what? It's not about our opinion. It's not about who's right. It's not about getting our way. It's not about proving to someone else that we understand the Constitution better or that we're a stronger Christian. The issue here is, what are the needs of the people around us? And this is particularly true in the community of faith. So we want to be careful and wise in that journey to say, We're going to think about how someone else will respond. And even here at the church, what pattern, what example are we setting to the wider community, to the unbelievers who are looking on at us as we walk through this time? So, yeah, consider the needs of others more important. Just sacrifice. Sure, you might be free. Sure, you might say, it's an inconvenience for me to wear a mask. It's annoying for me. Well, this is an opportunity for you to follow the pattern of Jesus and sacrifice what you want for the needs of somebody else and considering how they may feel. So then the third virtue we want to talk about is patience. And patience, of course, is a fruit of the Spirit. It comes only as we yield ourselves to God and allow His Spirit to work in and through us.
Yeah, and we as leaders just ask that you walk alongside of us and think about that the leaders and the board members wrestle with these decisions that we have to make, on a regular basis, and towards opening up and whatever decisions that we have to make. But just like in the book of Acts that you mentioned at the beginning, they wrestled with trying to come up with a plan to feed the widows or to deal with the issues that the widows had. But eventually they did come up with a plan.
Right. So for us in our timeline, we're asking you to be patient because we've chosen to launch our first community gathering on May 31st. We know that this Friday we move into yellow here in York County, but we didn't want to be reactionary. We didn't want to rush into something. We want to plan carefully and be prepared. So this Sunday will function much like we have for the last few weeks with a live stream available to you online. But starting May 31st, we'll be functioning differently. And as we walk into this, we're just asking for your patience. We're praying, we're discussing, we're reading all the information we can get our hands on, and we're seeking to make the wisest decisions that we can, the best decisions we can for everybody involved. Which leads me to our last word for the day, which is wisdom. And how do we walk forward during this time without becoming hardened into an either-or position? It's really easy for us to dig into what we feel and to make this sort of a black and white issue about everything.
Yeah. And in this time, we can function with a both and position. We can function with both courage and prudence in this time.
Right. It's not one or the other. It's not an either or proposition. It's both and. There's nuance to this. And sometimes that takes wisdom, and it takes all these other virtues we've talked about, humility, sacrifice, and patience. But to be wise, to say, not everything is as plainly spelled out, or it's just one person's hardcore opinion, and that's how we do it. We're taking a lot of people's feelings, a lot of people's thoughts and opinions into the decisions that we make. And so we're seeking to walk forward in the wisdom of the Spirit and cooperation with one another. And we have a chance to model for those around us what it is that God does in and through the hearts of believers.
Yeah, so with these Christian virtues in mind, the patience, humility, sacrifice, and wisdom, this is how we as Wellspring are going to move forward. And when we say move forward, this is for the 31st. We have no control what happens after the 31st.
Right.
Hopefully we'll just continue to keep doing it each week. But as things are changing, as bans are being lifted, as quarantines are lifted, it might change. But we're going to look at right now. What is it that Wellspring can do right now for the 31st? So this is what we're going to be doing.
Right. So we have several options that we're going to work through. But I want to just give you the general protocols that are going to be in place as we start to gather. The first is we're going to have 25 people in the space at a time. Now, for us, this is not going to include the people on stage. We're going to keep them up on the stage. They'll remain separate from the rest of the congregation in space. And so we're going to allow 25 people at a time above and beyond our leadership team into the space. We're going to spread out inside of our space. So we'll set up our chairs in such a way that we keep proper social distance from one another. We've decided not to require people to wear masks. You're certainly welcome to wear a mask if you want to. But again, this is one of these situations where somebody's not more or less Christian if they wear a mask or don't wear a mask. And so we don't want to enter into a judgmental or condemning kind of thing. We're not going to wear masks here, or require masks rather, unless you choose to. We are going to ask that we don't hug or shake hands during these first few weeks. And I know that's going to be really hard, because as soon as you see someone you haven't seen in a long time, you want to embrace them. A whole piece of Christian fellowship and community is connection and human touch. And a lot of us are missing that. But we're just going to have to be walking in caution there. And so please know that coming in, we're not going to be doing that. We will be singing. I know there's been a lot of discussion about should Christians sing. We're going to sing. And so just know that that'll be happening if you come. We won't be having children's ministries functioning. We're going to ask that your children sit with you during the service. And I know in some ways that's a challenge to do it that way.
Yeah, but what an opportunity to bring your children to worship in the sanctuary with you in this time, and for them to be able to see you worshiping and model that for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So we could see that as a negative, or we could go, wow, this is a great chance to do something new. A few weeks ago, we asked you to answer the question, what has coronavirus given me? Well, this is one of those things that it gives us, a chance for families to worship together. And I want to say right now, we're going to be grace-filled toward your children. If they cry, if they laugh, if they run around, if they have to go out to the restroom, if they make a lot of noise, it's okay. It's going to be community gathered, celebrating. We're going to be so glad to be together. And if your children act up in some way, oh well, that's just part of being family. So don't let that discourage you from coming. This is a chance for something new, for something fresh, for something unique. So plan to do that. And then in between services, we will be carefully wiping down anything that would be, doorknobs or handles where people go in and out and would touch things. We'll be wiping that down and sanitizing it to try to make sure that everybody stays safe. And then Pastor Dawn, tell us how we can go about connecting.
Yeah, so there's going to be 3 options that you'll have for Sunday services. So there'll be in-house services starting at 9:30, 11, and 2. And then the live stream at 9:30 that we have been doing each Sunday is still going to be live streamed on our Facebook page. So you'll still have the option of doing that. The 9:30 in-house will be by invitation only. The pastoral staff will reach out to those who have not been able to live stream because they don't have Facebook, they don't have computer, whatever. And for anybody who hasn't been connected to us, and it's particularly going to be for the seniors.
Right.
So that will be for them, set aside for them. Your options will be, if you decide that you're going to stay at home and continue doing the live stream at 9:30 a.m. on Sunday, that's wonderful, and that's your choice, and you are allowed to do that. But we are going to actually on our website have a registration site for you to click on that and say, I'm staying home and watching it at home. The second option is to sign up for the 11 a.m. in-house service. So you get to come to the church, 25 people, sit in the sanctuary, listen and to the worship team and hear a sermon. The third option is the 2 p.m. sign up. Same situation. You can come to the church and 25 of you get to worship and watch a sermon and fellowship with your church family. And you're probably asking, how do I sign up? That's a great question. So you just go to our website and there'll be a link on there for you to sign up.
Right. And we're just going to ask that you make sure and put, if you're bringing your children, if there are 2 of you coming. So if somebody signs up, make sure you put how many people will be in your group. And the registration will be set up in such a way that you can do that. And if we get filled up and we need to open up another service, a third service, we'll do that. But this way we're going to do it for now. And this is why we're asking, please make sure you sign up if you're staying home, because we're going to be looking at the whole list of our people and trying to reach out to anyone individually who doesn't sign up. So if you would please make sure you go to the website and sign up. And the website is Wellspring Wesleyan. Is it church? Yeah, it's wellspringwesleyan.com. Yeah, please go to the website, and that's where you can sign up. So again, as we go into this time of reentry, remember these Christian virtues of humility, of sacrifice, of patience, and of wisdom. And it's more important that we walk in these than that we somehow make our point or prove that we're right. So be gentle with one another. Be patient with us as we plan the process forward, and just keep praying for the church, praying for one another. I know God's going to bless this time. We're looking forward to seeing you face to face and being able to celebrate together as the people of God.
We love you.